Good evening. Welcome to Monday's night. This module on cultivating effortless mindfulness, which is a part of my presentation of the 7 factors of awakening. So we are coming to the end of this. This is the last session of this module on cultivating effortless mindfulness. So what I'm going to do today is to review what we have covered so far on mindfulness. And then to touch on a bit more of this effortless aspect of how we can practice mindfulness that we have covered already. So I started this whole module touching on mindfulness. I provide at least 2 different ways of defining mindfulness, 2 different ways of understanding. But the most important thing maybe to take away is to remember or remind ourselves that mindfulness, whatever the term refer to, is a natural quality that we all possess. We are naturally mindful. So it's not something we need to newly create or we need to somehow import in from somewhere else. We already have that ability at different occasions in our life. Even when we have not engaged in any formal training, we are naturally able to be mindful. We are maybe not so aware of it when it manifests, but that in itself is not a problem. We are capable of being mindful, and we are already doing it. Even though we may not we are not consciously aware of it, we do not point to it and label it as mindfulness. Nonetheless, we are mindful at certain occasions in our life. So since it's a natural quality and we already possess it, so practice or training is simply reinforcing, enhancing, encouraging this quality of mindfulness and then applying it to more aspects of our life. And maybe along the way, we are doing it a bit more conscious, we are more aware, more in touch with it. We at least know that we can identify these particular aspects of our experience. We can give it a name called mindfulness. Yeah. But apart from that, we are now doing something terribly extraordinary that require some tremendous amount of effort and energy. It's just a matter of learning how to encourage ourselves, encourage this quality to grow, to be more present, to manifest more often in different occasions. That's all. So mindfulness is defined, or quite often we hear mindfulness is described as a way of paying attention, which is emphasized on noticing what is happening in the present moment. Having said that, other definition may disagree with that, but nonetheless, it's an important aspect of our life to have the skill of knowing to able to come back and attend to what is happening in the present moment. Second, often is described as having a non-judgmental attitude. Very important to not understand this as we are unable to evaluate whether certain things is helpful or not helpful, good or bad. That's not what it means. Non-judgmental attitude means we do not jump to conclusion. We are more willing to be attentive, to notice, and to pay more attention to the details so that we are better acquainted with whatever it is we are mindful of, whatever experience or objects we are mindful of. In a way, we give it a chance to speak for itself and for us to not be blinded by our bias and prejudice. So that's what it means by mindful with a non-judgmental attitude. And lastly, it's often said to have to be done paying attention in an intentional or purposeful way, which means that there are occasions where we do intentionally and conscientiously return our attention to certain aspects of our experience. So we do that with a clear awareness and purpose in mind, really coming back and noticing what is happening. Right? So those are some of the characteristics that I have introduced, and we might have experienced it already anyway, within our own practice or experiences. Another way of understanding mindfulness is sometimes described as non-forgetfulness. You know, a better way to understand this is bring something clearly to mind, allow whatever it is that we are interested in to come to the very foreground of our awareness, so that we really have a good look at it. We notice all its details, all the nuances, and so forth. And so that is also another way of understanding mindfulness. I touch on 4 different domains or areas that we can work with to bring mindful attention to, and they have each of them bring with it certain benefits and advantages as we cultivate mindfulness, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of Dharma. So I just briefly review this. We have covered previously. Mindfulness of the body, returning attention to be attentive to the different bodily sensations, at the different parts of the body. Just a light touch, it's not being attentive or mindful of bodily sensation doesn't mean we need to drill down or we need to engage in some elaborate analysis and thinking. It's just to simply come back and to be in touch and to be aware of the sensations within the body. And each time we do it, we start to notice that this applying mindful awareness or allowing bodily sensation to come into our mindful awareness has a very helpful effect of reconnecting body and mind, healing that connection between our body and mind, which in our modern living has a tendency to suffer a bit of a disconnection or dissociation, where we are less in touch with the needs of the body. We are not aware that we are hungry, thirsty. Sometimes we are so stressed, so busy at work that we may even forget to visit the toilets. We are oblivious to the sign of tiredness and exhaustion within us because we keep pushing ourselves. So reconnecting body and mind by returning attention, mindful attention to our own body, has the benefit of helping the body to self-regulate. The body sort of recognize the state that it is caught up in, is stuck in, can begin a process of releasing anything that is unnecessary or unhelpful, not appropriate to the situation it is in. If there's no danger, then it does not need to maintain itself in a fight or flight mode. You can undo that mode. You can step out of it, and that begin a whole cascading series of changes, physically and so on and so forth, which can be quite helpful. It means that we are able to come back to a more relaxed baseline instead of maintaining a state of stress or agitation and so forth. Mindfulness of body. Mindfulness of body quite often lead to mindfulness of feeling, in particular pleasant feelings. So as the body releases all those accumulated tension and tightness and contractions, as those release happen, a mild sense of pleasure can arise. Not necessarily mild, but sometimes a pleasant sensation arise, signaling that release, accompanying that sense of relief, physical relief. And mindfulness of those pleasant feelings that arise in such a context has the benefit of reassuring our mind, which is experiencing this kind of wonderful sense of ease and relaxation and a comfortable feeling that everything is all right. And what this does is the effect is the mind also starts to slow down, calm down. The mind also automatically on its own start to release, let go, stop some of its reactivities. Reactivities often manifest in the form of thinking, compulsive ruminating thinking, where when we are stressed, sometimes we find ourselves, we are very agitated, we are very caught up in a certain issues or situations. The mind goes in a kind of a spiral, spinning around in thoughts and images, along with whatever emotions and feelings that may be triggered. And we get very caught up in that state of agitation. And we can call that a kind of mental reactivity, a state of a reactive state. So contacting pleasant feelings that arise from the release of bodily tension has a reassuring effect, help the mind to slow down and even release this reactivity, let go of their agitations, and incline the mind towards stillness and calmness. Yeah. It may not necessary all the way, but it can begin that process. So mindfulness of pleasant feelings that arise has this such a benefit. And as we become good at this two kind of mindfulness, it almost automatically leads us to the third mindfulness of the mind itself. The mind itself, how is it functioning in this moment? What is affecting the functioning of my mind, my consciousness? Is it helping or is it harming? Is it calming or is it agitating? Is my mind able to concentrate or my mind very distracted? Is my mind feeling very expansive, very open, spacious, and present? Is my mind feeling very constricted, very hemmed in, and so on and so forth. So the different states of mind becomes more obvious to us as we move down, move from mindfulness of body to mindfulness of pleasant feelings. Automatically, we find that we become more aware of our mind itself, along with the different states that are influencing it. And this awareness helps us to catalyze the next phase. So noticing how the mind is affected, then we can implement different ways to work with whatever is arising. It can help to further settle the mind even deeper. In fact, this is the sequence which we can make use of to go to develop deep concentration or deep states of meditative absorptions, right? From mindfulness of body leading to mindfulness of feeling, leading to mindfulness of the mind itself. Yeah. And by now, we are pretty skilled with mindfulness. We are more in touch and aware of the different aspects of our experiences, and we are ready for the fourth type of mindfulness, mindfulness of the Dharma. Previously, I explained this Sanskrit word Dharma can have multiple meanings, multiple levels of meaning, so to speak. One of them, Dharma could refer to is phenomena, things that we can know and we can experience, experiential phenomena. And so that is one meaning of the word Dharma. Among all the different experiential phenomena, two sets that are important to within the Buddhist context, of course, as I'm presenting from the background, phenomena or factors that contribute to our happiness, contribute to the happiness of the mind. And there's another set of factors that we can call them hindrances. They are contradictory and they are harmful, they disturb the mind, they agitate our mind, they increase unpleasantness and suffering of the mind. So these two factors, one, of course, we tend to call them wholesome qualities. Another one, we call them unwholesome qualities. So we become really mindful of these two category of qualities and whether they are present and absent, and when they are present, what sort of impact they have on our experiences. And likewise, also on their absence. Sometimes it's just as important to notice the absence as well as the presence. Take anger. Of course, we can become more mindful when we are getting angry, we're getting irritated and upset and pissed off. But it's also just as important to notice when we are not angry, we are not upset, we are not agitated. Because the contrast is very educational, so to speak. Then we can compare and say, oh, actually, I'm not so happy. Every time I get angry, my mind is really disturbed, I'm all worked up, I can't think clearly. Whereas there are occasions where for some reason or conditions, I'm not upset, I'm not angry, I can think clearly, I can see things clearly, I can deal with things much better. And also, I'm not disturbed by my anger. So presence and absence are both important. Another meaning of Dharma is used in the Buddhist context as referring to the truth or reality. So to be mindful of the facts, the reality, right? Sometimes I call it the basic facts of our life, of our reality, to be mindful of that. to be clearly aware of it. And this can refer to various general characteristics that we notice, the characteristics of impermanence, of change, and our experiences, or how our experiences change. Regardless of what we do, as conditions change, they also change. The truth, almost like universal truth of impermanence and change, and so on and so forth. So various kind of general characteristics, which can be very helpful, because as we take the example of impermanence and change, the more we are aware of it in our own experience, both internally and later externally, as we notice it, and in a way that is not just intellectual, because we all know things change on an intellectual level, but we may not have a deep experiential appreciation of the reality of change. And through mindfulness practice, we really come into touch with the bare fact of change. We see it in our experiences, we witness it with our mindful awareness, and on a deeper level, we come to learn to acknowledge it and accept it. So much so that it starts to affect the way we think, the way we see things, and the way we feel, and eventually it affects the way we respond to change. For example, one of the most drastic change, of course, in our life we encounter is death itself, our own death, or the death of people close to us. With the greater awareness and impermanence, death comes as still unpleasant, and it can still be a shock. But nonetheless, death is no longer something alien, something weird, to be avoided, a taboo that we try not to think about. Death becomes very much a part of life, of reality. And even though maybe we don't like it, we have to acknowledge the reality of death. And you'll find that with this kind of mindfulness, suffering that we experience, or the distress we experience when we encounter death, is much lessened, because within our worldview, there is now a place for it, in our general understanding. And that really helps us deal with the issues of death much better. And we greatly decrease our suffering, our distress over the fact of death. So there's some benefit of it. So this is the 4 kinds of mindfulness that we can cultivate. So I thought maybe let us do a meditation where I guide you through maybe all 4, just briefly touch on them, starting from inviting you to return your attention to your own body, mindfulness of body, and also reminding you along the way to be mindful of any pleasant feelings and sensations that arise, especially as a result of the release of physical tension, and then inviting you to be aware in particular of the mind itself, our own mind, the different factors affecting the mind, the state of our mind in. And lastly, briefly touching on and whether we are able to notice within our experiences some of the general characteristics that characterize our experiences. Yeah. And we're going to do a meditation called touch and release. So it's a way of contacting bodily experiences, but with the help of the breath. Breathing in, just allow the breath to flow naturally, even though it's a bit difficult when we become aware of the breath, when we are conscious of the breath. We inevitably interfere with the rhythm of the breath, but that's fine, not to worry too much about it. All I'm saying is don't have to deliberately breathe in some deep, long breath. It's not necessary. Yeah. So using the rhythm of the breath itself, when we notice an in-breath, think of it as an invitation to invite our attention to come back to the body, and we're going to move through the body in a specific way, part by part. Each part of the body, on the in-breath, we imagine be in touch and aware of the sensations there, with our mind in touch. And on the out-breath, we simply say the word release. The out-breath, we don't do anything other than to remind ourselves, our body and mind, the possibility of release. So each part of the body, synchronize with the breath, touch and release. Be in touch, be aware of sensations here, whatever sensation we notice, no worries. And on the out breath, to allow for the possibility to release. We don't have to make it happen, we simply remind ourselves that there is this option available. And as we go through the body in this way, see whether we can, in so doing, be mindful of bodily sensations and also catalyze the possible release of unnecessary tension and contraction. If along the way you do notice pleasant feeling arise as a result of the release, please also welcome them into your awareness and be mindful of them. Right. So let's start. So I invite you to find a suitable meditation posture for your body. For this meditation, we can sit on a chair like what I'm doing, or sit on the floor on a cushion. We can also lie down on the back in the supine position. In whichever case, try to allow the spine to assume a natural position, naturally upright. If you're sitting straight, if you're lying down, taking care that the posture does not introduce unnecessary tension and tightness, especially to our back. Rest our hands and arms on some physical support so that we can release their weight onto that support. We don't have to tense up our muscles to hold up our arms in any special way. Usually I just suggest people to close their eyes. That might be the easiest. Although if you are used to meditating with your eyes open or half open, that is also perfectly fine. Let's start by getting our body settled into the posture, becoming aware of our body in this posture, noticing the sensations coming through at the points of contact between body and seat, body and ground. By becoming aware of the touch of body and seat, touch of body and ground, receiving the sensation of the body resting on a solid, firm, stable surface. See if we can reassure our body that it is well supported and balanced in this posture, that the posture is able to hold up the body, support the body throughout the meditation. And reassured in this way, our body may realize that it is not necessary for it to sustain a state of tension or tightness or contraction. And so it will, in its own time, start to loosen up, to unwind, to release some of those contractions we notice in our body, in order for it to settle down more and more comfortably into the posture. And now to practice mindfulness of body with the help of the breath. Let's start by noticing and tuning into the rhythm of our breath, the rhythm of the changing sensations of the breath as we breathe in and out. Just tell ourselves, each time we breathe in is an opportunity to invite our attention to come back here and now to the body, to be in touch with the sensations at a particular part of the body, starting at the crown. Breathing in, be in touch with sensations at the crown. Breathing out is an opportunity to release. And we don't have to do anything consciously or deliberately. We simply, in our own mind, very softly say the word release as a reminder. We can release and simply allow body to let go of tension in its own time, mind to release its agitation and so on. So at the crown of our head, synchronize with the breath. Breathing in, we are in touch, we are aware of the simple sensations here. Breathing out, we remind ourselves to release at our own pace. Releasing our attention from the crown, allow attention to travel down to the forehead, lightly touching at the spot between the two eyebrows. Just a light touch. Breathing in, be aware of sensations here at the forehead, maybe also the rest of the face. Breathing out, we remind ourselves to release. So at the forehead, touch and release, synchronize with the breath. Maybe as we breathe out to release, we can allow the face to release any unnecessary tightness and contraction and welcome in a feeling of softness, ease, and comfort into our own face. Moving down, rest our attention at the throat so that we are in touch with sensations here at the throat, at the neck as we breathe in. We remind ourselves with the word release as we breathe out. Feel free to linger longer at any one spot if you like. Just rejoin us when you feel ready. Moving on, we rest our attention at the right shoulder. Just pick a spot at the right shoulder. Breathing in, be in touch with sensations here. Breathing out to release. Moving further down the arm to the right elbow. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations at the right elbow. Some simple sensations, a little bit of tingling, or maybe not. And on the out breath, to remind ourselves to release. Allow attention to move further down to the right wrist. Touch and release at the right wrist, synchronize with the breath, and see what happens. Let attention flow into the right hand, such that as we breathe in, we come back and in touch and aware of sensations in the hand. And as we breathe out, we remind ourselves to release. Breathing out, releasing. See if we can give permission and release the weight of the right arm. Allow it to rest comfortably on its physical support. Switching sides, rest our attention now to the left shoulder. Pick a spot at the left shoulder. Breathing in, be aware, be in touch with sensations here. Breathing out to release at the left shoulder. Moving down the left arm to the left elbow. Touch and release at the left elbow at our own pace. Moving down to the left wrist. Touch and release at our own pace. We let our attention flow into the left hand so that we are in touch, we are aware of sensations in the hand. As we breathe in, release as we breathe out. Releasing as we breathe out. Release the weight of the left arm and hand. Allow them to rest comfortably on their physical support. And return our attention to the chest, the center of the chest, at our heart center, so to speak, the place where we tend to feel strong feelings and emotions. As we breathe in, be in touch with sensations here. And as we breathe out, release. Allow attention to travel further down and deeper to the abdomen. Pick a spot just below the navel. Breathing in, be aware, be in touch with sensations here at the abdomen. Breathing out to release. Allow attention to descend even further to the very base of our spine at the tip of the tailbone. Allow ourselves, as we breathe in, to be aware, to be in touch with sensations deep within our pelvis at the base of the spine. And on the out breath, to remind ourselves to release. Releasing, maybe we can release the weight of the pelvis. Allow that weight to rest comfortably on its physical support. Moving on, rest our attention at the right hip joint. Breathe in, be aware of sensations at the right hip if we can. Breathing out, once again, remember to release. Moving down to the right knee, touch and release at our own pace. Continue down to the right ankle, touch and release. And as we continue with the following the breath, synchronize with the breath, be in touch with sensations in the body, releasing on the out breath. Along the way, if we notice pleasant sensations, however mild they may be, arising in other parts of the body, arising from some physical release of tension and contraction, or the rise of interesting sensations and feelings. Welcome these pleasant or interesting feelings into our awareness. Make them a part of the meditation. From the right ankle, let attention flow into the right foot. Breathing in, be in touch with sensations here at the right foot. Out and release. Release the weight of our right leg. Allow it to rest comfortably without tension on the floor or wherever support it is on. Switching over to the other side, starting from the left hip joint, place our attention at the left hip, touch and release at our own pace. Moving on to the left knee, touch and release. Down to the left ankle, touch and release. And finally, into the left foot. Be in touch on the in-breath sensations at the left foot and release on the out-breath. Release the weight of the left leg. Allow it to rest comfortably on its physical support. So we rest our body in this posture. Allow it to continue to settle down, to unwind, to release unnecessary contractions and tension. We rest our attention with the breath and continue on the in-breath to come back here and now to be in touch with what's happening. And on the out-breath, to continue to deepen the sense of release. Coming back here and now, be in touch with the sensations throughout the body as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, continue to release alongside with bodily sensations. Maybe we can be mindfully aware also of some feelings. Hopefully some comfortable, pleasant, relaxing feelings in some parts of the body. And as we touch pleasant sensations whenever they arise, we are also enabling the mind to release. Releasing, putting aside thoughts, images, stories, things that preoccupy the mind, distract the mind, agitate the mind. All this can be released breath by breath. So resting here with body, with breath, with any feelings that arise, any pleasant, even unpleasant sensations. See if we can turn our attention and notice whether we are aware also of the state of our mind. The state of the mind, the state of knowing and awareness. Is it under the influence of certain factors? Does the mind feel drowsy, dull, and dark? Lack of energy? Is the mind still fairly active, agitated, lots of thoughts jumping here and there? Or is there a relative state of stillness and calmness and presence where the mind remains awake and alert, in touch with what is happening? Okay, so there's one way of cultivating mindfulness, starting from mindfulness of body, leading to mindfulness of feeling, leading to mindfulness of the mind. Today, we don't have time to cover, at least during the meditation, touch on mindfulness of the Dharma, but there's something we can explore on our own. And hopefully, I'm able to show that the cultivation of mindfulness doesn't have to be something very strenuous, does not have to involve struggle and frustration, and that there is also an internal kind of a progression that we can make use of, especially if we are doing in a kind of formal setting like what I've been presenting as a form of mindfulness meditation, that it would be helpful and easy to start with mindfulness of body, whichever variation that I've introduced over this module, and that naturally leads us to be more in touch with sensation feelings. So, pleasant, unpleasant, usually are good to start with. Eventually, we can also notice neutral sensation that does not invoke or does not immediately, we cannot immediately classify as pleasant or unpleasant. And given time, this really helps the body and mind to settle down. And naturally, without great effort on our part, we start to be aware or in touch with our mind, the mental activities. Whether there are a lot of mental activities that last, and occasionally we will experience a brief period, even very early on in our practice, where we are aware and awake, but the mind is relatively calm and still and not preoccupied with thinking. We get to have a first-hand experience of the functioning of our own mind, our own consciousness. And naturally, given time and with practice, whether we like it or not, we will also become more mindful of the last category of Dharma. We become more mindful of the different objects that comes into our experiences. Some are pretty normal and mundane, and some are pretty interesting and unusual. And also we start to accumulate our own understanding, our own experiences, and we start to notice some general characteristics that characterize the different experiences, which are referred to as the basic facts of reality. And we are more in touch with that. And so not only intellectually, we can actually have an experiential awareness and encounter with these different aspects. Yeah. And mindfulness is not something, although it seems to be presented these days as something sort of a standalone solution to a lot of issues and problems, but realistically, it's just helpful conditions that can benefit us in many ways, of course. I definitely recognize its benefits in my own experience. But it's good not to isolate out and think of it as something, it's not some magic pill that we can pop and then all our problems will go away. Instead, with greater awareness and mindfulness, it helps contribute to our understanding of what is bothering us, and in itself can also, on occasion, be a solution. It contributes to our increasing ability and capability of dealing with the challenges in our life. That for sure is true. But it's good not to think of mindfulness in isolation from other qualities and abilities that we have, other skills that we can develop, knowledges that we can learn. It's good to incorporate it in as a part of the solution to whatever problems that we are facing. Now I want to touch on a little bit and maybe review and emphasize a few ideas that I personally find helpful to make our experience of mindfulness, our cultivation of mindfulness more effortless. By that, I mean the actual experience itself is not one that is full of struggle, full of frustrations. It's almost like we are in a tug of war with certain aspects of ourselves. It doesn't have to be like that. And it also does not have to involve us really tensing up and using our excessively our willpower. Of course, there are occasions where in life we need to be firm with ourselves and have be clear about what we want to do and be determined. But in general, willpower is not the way to mindfulness. First of all, we have a limited amount of willpower. It's good not to rely on it constantly, because we get exhausted, we get tired mentally if we constantly practice in a very willful manner. No, and it's not necessary. So I'm trying to, by describing mindfulness as effortless, I'm trying to get people to think a bit differently, try to approach the cultivation of mindfulness in a different way, a different approach, not one that is constantly associated with tension and force, in a forceful way, but one in which we can, by changing our perspective, think of it as fostering and encouraging natural qualities that we already possess. We are just simply enhancing, increasing its strength, enhancing its function, its scope, so that it is more readily arise in a way that is helpful to us, help us to be more aware of what is happening. First inside of us, and later we can also be more mindful of the external circumstances we find ourselves in. And so in order to enhance and cultivate mindfulness in such an effortless approach, there's a few things I find helpful to remind ourselves from time to time, and that we can also try on and see whether it helps us to have a more effortless experience of mindfulness. First, I have already mentioned at the beginning, to think of mindfulness as a natural ability that we already possess. So we are not newly creating something, we are not newly importing it from some other way. We have it and we are using it in different occasions. We are already mindful. We may not know or we may not call it that, but it is a natural ability. And even though we don't have a name for it, doesn't mean that up till now, until we go for mindfulness training, we are not mindful. No, that's not true. So because it's something we have, we don't have to feel we need to struggle a lot, put in huge amount of effort in order to be mindful. Instead, we can approach it a bit differently and just learn to figure out what are the conditions unique to each one of us, because it's different, we are all different. What are the conditions that foster us to be more mindful? And also, of course, what are the conditions under which we tend to be more mindless? We tend to forget to be mindful. Some people, interest is one of the conditions. If we are interested in certain things, we tend to be more mindful, give more attention to what the subject of our interest. So if you are interested in plants, you naturally are more mindful of the different variety of plants. I'm pretty oblivious to it. I'm not interested in it. So I can walk past all these plants and I never pay attention to it. I don't notice their characteristics. Of course, I don't know their names. No. So this is just a very mundane example. Interest, naturally, we are mindful. So that is true for external things. That is also true for internal things. When we are becoming curious and interested in the different experiences that we have, and maybe certain kind of reactions or habits that we have are bothering us, maybe we can make that a subject matter of interest to us. And naturally, our attention will come back, and we would even automatically, spontaneously be mindful of it when it is triggered. Suppose I wanted to really work on my anger, I can make it a point to learn about anger, learn about the knowledge of anger, and also try to pay attention when I myself am angry. I got angry, and sometimes this interest and paying attention to the subject matter of interest, we don't necessarily have to do it on the spot. Of course, ideally we can be mindful when I'm angry, but most of the time I'm not. Right? I'm angry and I'm not mindful of it, mindful of the fact. But I can, subsequent to that, I look back and suddenly realize, I think I was pretty angry back then. And at that point of time, I can actually spend some moments, recollect what happened when I was angry previously, recollect the sensations, the experience, the kind of thoughts that flow through me, the scenario, as many details as I can recollect. Yeah. This is an unusual way of applying mindfulness, retrospective mindfulness, looking back and remembering the details, bringing them once again to the foreground of my attention, my awareness, to be aware of it after it has happened. It might seem strange, but if you were to try it and do it a few times, it sort of set up a kind of program in the mind that, of course, the first few times we always miss it. We have to look back, and we look back and look back, and then one day suddenly, in the midst of getting angry, we are suddenly aware, oh, this is it. I am angry and I'm aware of it right in the midst of the anger episode. Why? Because you have been diligently, recollecting, recognizing some of the signs of our own very individual way of getting angry. And the more we take note of it, the more we sort of become familiar with it. And one day we actually notice it spontaneously, without any effort. We sort of become conscious of the fact that I think I'm angry. So that's one way we can become more mindful by practicing. You can call this retrospective mindfulness. Not so difficult, and especially as I said, if there is an interest, a genuine interest to do something about it, to get to know it better, then this is something we can do. Another idea of mindfulness, especially in the formal practice of mindfulness, is to be very careful how you approach it and not to make as a goal the idea that I will stay with the object of my mindfulness. I must stay with the breath, I must stay with the body, I must stay in the present moment, I mustn't be distracted. Better not to set up the goal in such a way, because this setting up the goal in this way is a kind of a lose-lose scenario for ourselves. First of all, it is really difficult for us to consciously make our attention stay at any one object or spot. That's a very difficult thing to do. And since it's difficult, we tend to react by tensing up our body, try to squeeze out some kind of mindfulness, or somehow try to fixate our attention on whatever it is we're supposed to pay attention to. It's a very sort of struggle and introduce a lot of additional tension, tightness down, not so helpful. And all because the way we go about setting up the goal of mindfulness. Much better to reframe the whole thing. Think of mindfulness instead of staying in the present, staying with this object, stay, forget about staying. Think of it as coming back to the present moment. And that we all can do. We know how to wander off, but we also know how to come back to the present moment. We can come back and notice what is happening here. We may not stay for long, but we can always come back. We get distracted by something, but we can come back to what we are attending to, what we are doing. Then we get distracted again, we can come back again. We can always come back. Coming back is something we can do, and all we need to do is do it better, do it more frequently, do it more effortlessly, be able to come back more gracefully. Don't get upset with ourselves, don't be frustrated, no need to struggle. Just notice that, I'm distracted, my mind is start to thinking about something else, I'm daydreaming, no worries. If necessary, I want to be mindful of what is happening here, I just come back to here. If I'm practicing mindfulness of the breath, I just come back to the breath. It's okay. Coming back, if you define the goal that way, you find that you are constantly accomplishing it because we can come back. And to see that the more we are able to do it, we are improving, enhancing our mindfulness. Mindfulness is not about the fact that we ought to be able to stay in the present moment or stay with whatever it is for as long as possible. That is possible, but to set it up as a goal in that way is to invite frustration, invite a sense of discouragement. Very easy for us to feel that we are a failure when we are not able to do it. Right? Whereas if we define it differently, coming back to the present moment, coming back to what I'm attending to, coming back to what is happening here and now, that anyone can do. And we can keep doing it many times if necessary. Just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. No problem. And when we define it that way, we naturally have a sense that it is a success. It's a win-win situation. It's something totally doable, and we are accomplishing it every time we try. And so we feel encouraged and empowered to keep doing it. Coming back to the present moment, recognizing what is happening here is something that we can do and something that we can reinforce. And eventually, after a while, we do that in formal practice, and after a while, we do it automatically. It becomes a new habit. We can get distracted. Nothing special, it's quite normal, and we also can be present here and now, what is happening. And the last idea I have floated this previously is the final idea point that I want to contribute to this effortless experience of mindfulness. Is I suggest we can also adopt a different perspective to understand mindfulness. A lot of time when we start to train in mindfulness, we start to practice mindfulness, we have a very strong sense of agency. I must be mindful. I am going to be mindful. I am mindful. This I is a very strong notion, strong presence, as if it's something that I am doing to myself. I am doing. So it becomes a kind of task. It becomes like a doing. It's defined as a doing. I must be mindful. I must do this mindfulness thing. And doing is a lot of work, isn't it? So naturally we feel that I must work hard. I must work. I'm suggesting to shift the perspective a bit. Instead of defining mindfulness as a doing, define mindfulness as a being. I'm just here. I'm being here, present here, and I just notice things. I don't have to actually do anything. I just need to almost like settle back and just chill and just be here, and then I'm already mindful. Whatever I notice while I'm here is, of course, mindfulness of the present moment, mindfulness of what is happening in the present moment. Of course, it's nothing spectacular. Usually, maybe you arrive at the park, you just plunk yourself onto the bench, and just be there. And automatically, you notice sights, sound, sensations. If it out in daytime, out in the sun, you're aware of the light, the warmth, all perfectly normal and effortless. We don't even think about it, But that is mindfulness in the present moment. By practicing and learning to just be. To be is to be here and now. And that's all that is. No effort needed. Nothing extra. The very moment you're being here is also the very moment that there is mindfulness. It's already present. So I would encourage you to shift from a doing mode to a being mode. Not think of mindfulness as something really hard that you need to put a lot of effort to do, but as something so natural that the moment you allow yourself to just be, it's already here. And in terms of practice, I like to help us shift from a doing mode, very task-oriented mode, to a state of being, allowing ourselves to settle down, to just be. And, we have been here, we are aware, we naturally notice things, we are open and receptive of what is coming in, what is happening. I like to start people with listening, because to me, among all the physical senses, listening has the closest quality to just be. Because listening is among the senses where, there are other senses similar, of course, but listening is one of the senses that we really don't feel like we need to do anything. In fact, to listen better, we do less and less. In fact, best is to do nothing. Just stop what we are doing, just settle back, and just quiet down. Definitely stop talking, and just quiet down, and immediately we can hear better. Immediately we are present, we are here to listen. So if we start with listening, it helps us, at least it helped me, to shift from a doing mode into a being mode. And to be here, to be present, is to be aware also. To be aware of the sound, the different kind of sound. And then before long, we are aware of other things. We are aware of the body, mindfulness of the body. Bodily sensations naturally arise, breath sensations. And as we rest more, this being, we contact feelings, we contact the mind, the thoughts. All this can happen. with no effort on our part. And when we do get distracted, not a problem. Sound now become a helper, also another support. The moment we hear a sound, the moment sound arises, the sound is almost like reality calling us back, calling our attention back from our daydreams or our worries or our planning to come back to here and now, to be here and now, and to be with the sound, to notice the sound. So, in fact, the more sound there are, the more helper we have, calling us again and again to come back to just be here and be now. So listening has this kind of, if we think in this way, can really benefit us. And then mindfulness practice, even in the former, kind of formal or semi-formal way, it's just a matter of be present. And listen can also be means to be aware, to be attentive of all the different things that is happening at this moment. And this can happen in a formal setting like meditation, or when you're out for a walk, as I mentioned just now, have a seat out in the park, in the nature, or wherever you are. Immediately, by adopting this listening mode, we are being here, we are here, and we are already mindfully aware of whatever is happening. So, as far as I'm concerned, it sounds pretty effortless, pretty straightforward. So let's do one last meditation, just to reinforce this idea, and I might remind you to try out some of the pointers that I mentioned earlier, that in order to make the whole practice and cultivation of mindfulness in our own experience more effortless and spontaneous experience, so much so that we start to develop some confidence in our own natural ability to be mindful. It's not something so rare, so special. Only people that gone through special training can be mindful. It's not true. No, it's just a matter of becoming aware, and also to value it and to encourage it, to reinforce it, so that it become more and more common, and it help us to be more and more in touch with the reality of our life. So I'm going to invite you to meditate, and I'm going to produce some sound with this. I found this singing bowl in the center. My friend reminded me that there is one. It's quite spectacular in the sense that the vibration lasts a long time. So there's a lot of things to listen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to adopt a posture, take a few moments, settle ourselves in the posture. And I'm just going to ring this singing bowl, and we listen. And as the sound dies down, we can transition from listening to what I produce artificially to listening what is naturally present in your surrounding. And then coming back again and again to that listening mode, to just be here and now, wherever we are. And naturally, we can expand the scope of that mindful awareness from sound to bodily sensations, still in that listening mode. Just be here, be now. And then we notice other things. We notice feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, comfortable, uncomfortable. We notice thoughts, we notice words, images in our mind, and so on and so forth. And all we need to do, in fact, is to do nothing, to do less and less, and to become more and more comfortable and at ease of just returning our attention to here and now, to just be, this listening aware space. All right? So I'll guide you for the first part, and then we'll see what happens. So just as before, take a few moments and become aware of your posture. Choose a posture that is suitable for this particular session. Take care that the spine and back feels comfortable in this posture. Rest our arms and hands on some kind of support. And you might find it helpful to close your eyes so that we can listen better, but you can also leave your eyes open if you like. So take a few moments and just let our body settle into the posture, find its way into this posture. and to reassure ourselves that the posture feels stable, supportive. At a given time, our body will respond naturally by releasing bit by bit some of those unnecessary contractions, tightenings, and be able to ease itself comfortably into your meditation posture. So as I ring this sound, this singing bowl, I invite you to adopt, to shift into a listening mode. Simply be here and now, and be open, be a listening, spacious awareness to receive the sounds coming from here and wherever you are. Inviting our own attention to come back here and now, to be a spacious, open, listening awareness, receiving the sounds of the singing bowl, my voice, the sounds in your own surrounding. See if we can settle back, quiet down, and just be present, receive the sounds. And I'm going to sound the bowls again, just as a reminder for us to be present and just listen. Coming back here and now, be this listening, aware space alongside the sounds. Maybe by now, without any effort on our part, we are aware of the body, bodily sensations, areas of tightness, tension, and discomfort, maybe areas of relaxation, of ease and comfort. Tune into the sounds, the bodily sensations, especially the sensations in the face, as so often we unconsciously tense up the muscles of the face, contracting, tightening muscles of the forehead, or those of the jaw, or those around the eyes. If we can, and as we have more conscious control over facial muscles, if we can, with awareness, See if we can trigger a release of those tensions in the face to welcome in a different set of feelings, softness, ease, and comfort into our own face. We can go a long way to persuade the body to also settle back, to settle down, to ease up. To shift and transition from a doing mode into one of being present here and now. Listen and be aware. Be aware of sounds in the surrounding, the sound of my voice. Be aware of bodily sensations, even breath sensations. Be aware of feelings, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings. See if we can acknowledge them. And doing less and less and becoming more comfortable to just be this listening, spacious awareness. Somewhere along the way, you may suddenly realize that you are no longer being here. You are no longer that open, spacious, listening awareness. Attention is somehow drawn most likely to thoughts. You follow a particular train of thoughts elsewhere. See if you can regard that as something perfectly normal. And all we need to do is to remind ourselves to just come back to here and now, open up and just listen. Coming back here and now, allow the sounds in your surrounding, bodily sensations, breath, and so on, to call you back to reality, call you back to here and now. And we can release and put aside different thoughts that preoccupy the mind. Just allow attention effortlessly to just come back and be here, and be now, and be aware. Coming back to the present moment, see if you can remind yourself there's no need for us to struggle, to force our attention to stay put, because we can always choose to come back, always choose to return our attention to the present moment. And by so doing, we are already practicing mindfulness. We are already mindfully aware of what's happening here and now. So as we settle back into here and now, as we become more and more comfortable, we find our way to just be here as that listening, aware space. We find that we are able, without any effort, to listen and be aware of sounds, of the body, bodily sensations, of feelings, of the breath. And we may even be able to listen to thoughts, words, images flowing through the space of our own mind, but somehow without the power to capture and hijack our attention. And so we are present and aware of all these changing experiences. So for the next few minutes in silence, I invite you to just settle back, doing less and less until doing nothing. Simply be here and now as that listening aware space. Okay, so as I mentioned, um, mindfulness doesn't stand alone. It's good. It's a wonderful quality that we have that we can enhance and cultivate. But and already we can see by cultivating mindfulness, hopefully in a more effortless way, it really helps us with our bodily as well as mental reactivities, especially our reactivity towards stress, which is why in the secular context, mindfulness is first explored and popularized in the context of stress reduction. So there are very distinct, clear benefits that come out of cultivating mindfulness. But in and of itself, uh, I mean, it's beneficial, but it would be even better uh, to cultivate other qualities to work alongside our mindfulness. And after all, mindfulness provides us with greater awareness of what is happening to the body, to our feeling, to the mind, to the various phenomena, things that we experience. And this is a good basis for us to engage with investigation, to investigate, to go deeper, to uncover things that we are unaware of, or to overcome any kind of distorted perceptions or understanding we carry with us. So the cultivation of mindfulness lead naturally to the next factor of that contribute to awakening or enlightenment is the investigation of Dharma, investigation of our experiences. That would be the theme of my next module coming up on Monday evening. So hopefully you will join me and we can investigate a bit more. So that's all I have for presentation on mindfulness. I hope if you don't remember many things, remember one or two, and really try to see if you can engage in the cultivation or development of mindfulness in a more effortless and more enjoyable way, less of a struggle, less of a forcefulness and willfulness, but one that is that might feel or come across as more natural and spontaneous. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a good week ahead and hope to see you here next week. And good night.